Hello, hello. My name is Marissa Jay White-Quarles, also known as MJ. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us here at TETV for our Black History Month special. Happy Black History Month if someone hasn't said it to you or you haven't said it to someone else. It is officially February 1st of a brand new year, and I am super excited to have three beautiful, remarkable, educated, intelligent queens here on the show today. A little bit about me. I am with TETV. I am an assistant producer. Today I'm acting as a host, which I'm excited for. And I am also an author of a children's book that you can now purchase on Amazon called I Love Your Skin. The link should be posted somewhere in the comments or somewhere on the screen. But that is not what we're here for today. I just wanted to plug that in. We are here so that we can kick off Black History Month. A little bit about Black History Month. We have been celebrating it in the nation since the 60s. It used to be Negro History Week, and since then has become Black History Month and is recognized as a national celebration. So without further ado, let me bring on our beautiful guest. Let's see if they're ready to come in. Latoya, Reda, and Tori. Hello, hello.
Hey.
How are you all? Go ahead and introduce yourselves. I'll let you do it since you do it so well.
So I'll go first. I'm Latoya Flowers. I'm an exhibition media producer at the Field Museum. I've been there for 3 years now, and yeah, happy to be here.
Yay, Tori.
I am Tori Lee. I've been at the Field Museum about almost 4.5 years now, and I'm an exhibit developer. So I work on creating content for exhibitions with folks inside and outside the museum, and I am thrilled to be here.
Yay, and Miss Reda.
Hi, I'm Reda Brooks. I am the budget coordinator for the exhibitions department at the Field Museum. And my role is to help manage the money, the budgets, get the bills paid, allocate expenses, so that we can keep up with all the finances for all of the exhibits that we produce.
Yay! Well, welcome to the show. Real quick before I dive in, the reason we brought these three beautiful women here to celebrate them and their Black voices and to hear about the history behind what they do and their experiences in their roles in their professional life. At TETV, we celebrate diversity and inclusion 365. It is not just in Black History Month. However, it is Black History Month, so what better way to celebrate? I want to start with talking about what exactly your roles are in your jobs. Reda, do you want to start us off?
Yes, it's the day-to-day making sure that everybody gets paid. I do this administration for the department. I liaison with other departments in the museum because what exhibition does is revenue generating, and it's budgeted from various sources. We get money from donors and other institutions, and each project has its own portfolio or expense requirements. So I make sure that, like I said, anything that has to do with spending money in our department, so getting the bills paid, and then when we get reports every month, I make sure that all of the expenses that we're taking, expense reports and all those things are categorized correctly and allocated to the correct budgets. Sometimes I give updates, planning, and make sure that we are on track because some of these projects take a while. They're not just, a 6 month, it could be a 5-year project. And so each year we have to make sure that we're on track and that we're spending according to plan.
Wow. So you have a lot to do. Something I could never do, I don't think. But that's
you could do it. We do it every day.
That's incredible. How long have you been involved in that? How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been at the Film Museum for 5 years. I have a background in financial management and financial services. I worked in banking, trust, corporate credit. I was a financial planner for a number of years. In Africa, I did some financial management work on some of the development projects that I worked on as well.
In Africa?
In Africa. From 1995 to 2009, I lived in Johannesburg, South Africa. Wow. And I got a chance to work and live and travel across the continent working on U.S. Funded projects and development projects for international organizations.
That's remarkable. That's so neat. So many hats or many scarves.
Many scarves.
Latoya, can you tell us about your role?
Yep. So as an exhibition media producer, I create all of the multimedia that you see in exhibits, such as video, audio installations for permanent and traveling shows. I also mainly work as a lead media producer for major exhibitions as well for the Field Museum.
That's amazing. Thank you. Miss Tori?
So I'm an exhibit developer. We kind of call ourselves the storytellers of the exhibitions department. So I work with everybody across exhibitions, across the museum. I work with scientists, curators, artists, community members to create the content for exhibitions. So we help select objects, we help write labels. I work with Latoya a lot to figure out, oh, does this need to be a media piece? Does this need to be something where it would be a better experience if a visitor interacted with something, if they did something tactile, if this was an audio experience? That's all the kind of stuff we work together. And it's an extremely collaborative team. Everything we do in exhibitions is done with a huge team of people. So it's great.
Thank you. So for me, for someone who is not too familiarized with museums, and I have actually not until a show that we did, so you're about to graduate college, I didn't have much familiarization with museums and what all happens behind the scenes. I did not even know Black people were involved in museums. As silly as that sounds, and I'm sure some of our viewers probably this might be as a shock to them as well, just especially with seeing people that look like you. How did you all get involved in this?
Oh, let's start. I have an unconventional story. As I said, I lived in Africa and I came back to the United States in 2009. The economy was just in a bad state. I couldn't find a job. And I did a lot of temporary and contract work. And just by chance, one of the assignments that I got was to come to the Field Museum on a temp assignment. There was a woman who had been in the position that I now hold for about 12 years, and she was leaving in about 11 days. And they wanted somebody to fill her position temporarily. And when I got there and saw what she did, which is something I could do, basically in my sleep, I just kind of fell into it. And then she took me around and introduced me to people as the temp until they found somebody to replace her. And I spoke up. I was like, excuse you, I think I need a job. So I talked to my now boss and made my case and motivated for the job, and they gave it to me. So I'm here.
I know that's right. Good for you. And you said you've been there for 5 years.
Up. 5 years, yeah.
Wow. And so that's how you got connected with Tori and Latoya?
Yes, we all work in the same department.
Okay.
And there are not a lot of us, so we look for each other.
We do.
And then we bonded on the work that we've been able to do together. The Black History Month.
The work that you all have done together. I've done some research on all three of you, and I want everyone to know about the changes that you all made, where you all are at. Latoya, do you want to start off with that?
Sure. I can go back a little further before I started at the Field Museum. My history in museums started right after I graduated from grad school at School of Visual Arts in New York. I got my MFA in social documentary film. And then I'm originally from Chicago, so I moved back home to get married, of course. And then looking for work and stumbled across a job at the planetarium. They were looking for media producers in their exhibition department. And from there, it just really jump-started my career. My career really took off, and I found my passion at the planetarium, creating media for exhibits, putting my degree to use in documentary filmmaking. And then from there, I was at the planetarium for 4 years, worked on a lot of exhibitions. And a job opened up at the Film Museum, another dream job come true. And I've been at the Film Museum ever since. But some of my challenges that I have overcome or have faced in my career really started at the planetarium when I started at working at museums. And one of them was really being the only Black person on staff in the creative department. And that was daunting at first. That was hard to overcome and to go through. But to me, representation is really important. So I took that as not something to be sad about or to be disappointed, but okay, how do I make a difference? How do I make a change where I work? And one of that was jumpstarting their Black History Month initiative. It wasn't something they wasn't really celebrating Black history before I started. So I helped create a lot of exhibits based on Black history while there. And then when I started at the Film Museum, we were kind of like going through the same thing. So I was happy to be a part of the Black History Month committee at the Film Museum to also contribute in making change.
That's remarkable. At the Field Museum, when you entered there, at what point, when you first got to the Field Museum, they were not celebrating Black History Month?
No, they weren't. That was like about 3 years ago, right, guys? Yeah, like I started like in 2017. So yeah, at that time, we weren't really celebrating Black History Month at that point.
So did you all just come together and say, hey, this is something that we want to put together, this is something that we want to do? Or how did that come about? How did Black History Month being celebrated at the Field Museum start?
That was all.
Let's talk to Tori.
No.
Tori will tell. No, let's start with your story first, Tori.
I mean, I think part of the story is that I had been at the museum a few years. I had all this, like, I don't know, I really felt frustrated by the lack of representation. I was trying to connect different folks from different departments. We're really siloed at the Field Museum because it's such a big institution. It's very hard to connect with folks who aren't in your immediate department. And I had all this, like, this energy trying to make something really have to get, and the know-how to do it. I tried to create a group for us, and I received a little bit of pushback from the museum, and I just was like, I don't have the bandwidth to do it. And I kind of talked to Reda about it, and I think she had already been thinking about Black History Month, about why we don't celebrate it. And I mean, Reda was like the focusing lightning rod to make this all happen. I think all of us across the Field Museum had we're all kind of thinking the same thing, feeling some of the same things. And Reda just like focused all of that energy and truly made it happen.
Okay, everybody keeps wanting to say that. I'm hesitant, but I'm also grateful to say that. Yeah, I did. But I think one of the catalysts for me is like, I have a financial background, but I also have a liberal arts background in African studies. And my mentors are people who are African-centric or Africanist or, civil rights oriented people. So that's who I am. And then I followed my passion and moved to Africa on my own. So I always look for that. And I came to work at the museum, and it was a new world. I don't know anything about museums. I would have never have thought I would have been there. And, we go and do things for Black History Month every year. Your family, your friends, like, well, what are you doing at the museum? And then we don't have anything to say. So one of the things Tori did, like she said, she wanted to develop an employee group, and didn't get a lot of traction. And she was really feeling a kind of like, a bit dejected about it. And I saw that. And then last year 2019, I went and did these great things for Black History Month. And then I come back to the museum and it's crickets. Nothing is going on. And I decided, okay, I need to at least ask some questions about it. So I made an appointment with our president. And in my 25 minutes appointment with him, I made an elevator pitch and asked why we don't celebrate Black History Month. And he was very, open and honest. Like, he didn't have an answer why. And, then he asked me if we wanted to do it. And so I was encouraged because, like I said, you could see that we are walking around every day in a big, beautiful institution with a lot of things going on, and we don't have anything to say, and we're not inviting our citizens in Chicago and our visitors to come in and see some of the beautiful things that we have to offer that support something like Black History Month. And from there, it was a journey, but here we are today talking to you about it.
Wow. When I first spoke to you all and I kind of got a brief introduction of the history of how you all came about that, I said, wow, see, this is why we are Black History. Because so often people talk and they're like, wow, Black History Month. People, we think about people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., et cetera, other people who've paved the way for us as a whole. But then you have people such as yourselves who've done something so remarkable. We have a question from Patrick Kling. Do you all have any recommendations for museums, theme parks, companies, or other organizations in starting their own Black History Month program?
I would say just start.
That sounds great.
Yeah. And don't wait.
Patrick, you go and talk to whoever. Go top. I went to the president. I was like, let's just go to the person that can make a decision about this and stop, because you'll get somebody in the, bandwidth a little bit lower down that they don't see it. They couldn't see the vision. And another thing I noticed, I work in exhibitions, as we said, we work with a lot of different departments. We see what's going on, and you get the energy. They were by the time Tori started talking to them, they were getting ready to start looking at, diversity and equity and accessibility and inclusion, but they were just literally getting started. So I think when she came to them, they were like, we're not ready, so we don't know what to do. And you see a window of opportunity with everyone. All museums right now are looking, all institutions, not every, just museums, with the Black Lives Matter movement that we had last summer, and people, crying out for equity. So go to somebody that can make a decision and have a conversation and ask questions. And if you have the capability of doing something, start looking at what resources and things you have going on in your institution and start with that. And you do it.
Absolutely. I 110% agree. I also believe that it's, for whatever reason, difficult for people to understand the importance of having Black History Month celebrations as well as diversity and inclusion across the board. If there's anybody who's watching who still does not understand that, do you care to explain why it's so important to have representation?
Okay, ladies, don't let me do all the talking. You got something to say?
No, I was just going to add that back to Patrick's question, not only just starting, but also seeing who's on your team and letting them know that their voices are important. Their representation does matter. It's not an afterthought. It's not something that's just put on the back burner once a year, and that their contributions to whatever field they're working in is important. I hate the fact that we have to wait so long to do that. Like, we have to wait until there's a Black person on staff to say, all right, let's start celebrating Black History Month. That should have been happening before Rita started, before Tori started, before I started. That should have been ongoing. Like, we should not have been the first to jumpstart it. And so, I think, like, here we are now, but I really do wish, like, institutions would make it a priority, and really look at who's on their staff and have them involved, have them feel inclusive and not exclusive.
Yeah. Sorry. Also, going back to that question, I think one piece of advice is, I think museums, like the field, any institution, honestly, like, get really caught up in the, like, we're not ready mentality, or like, we have to think about this really hard and get this perfect to want to get it out there. And like, what Rita was really good at is like, no, we're just going to try. We're just going to do it and start it and get because you build momentum as you're going, and it's not going to be perfect when you first start. It's not going to be, maybe the programming of your dreams immediately, but like by not starting, by getting caught up in that preciousness, like you'll lose traction, you'll lose momentum, and like it's just prolonging something that you should already be doing. And as far as representation goes, like I think Latoya's point is really good, and something that Reda really tried to do was like, okay, well, a starting point is just figuring out, there's Black people here at the museum, there were Black people at the museum. Like, let's start at home base first. Let's look at our own organization and start thinking about this more. And it's really important for folks to see Black people in these roles in museums. I think the power of Carl Cotton's story, which I know we'll talk about a little later, I mean, just even having a figure to see, in our museum's history that was Black who worked in exhibitions, like it was so powerful for me. I know for the rest of the team. That means like folks who are coming to see this exhibit see, oh, there's a Black man who worked in museums in the 40s. There are Black people here now. Like this is a career path I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know, nobody told me I could do this, but here's an example. And not only are Black folks, responding to Carl Cotton's story, but like everyone, like these stories are powerful of Black folks to everyone. So it's not just like checking some sort of Black history box. These are powerful stories about powerful people, for everyone.
Yeah, and I like the fact, Rita, that with the first celebration, you did pull us all from all departments, like from food service to maintenance to the cleaning staff. Like it wasn't just our voices on the creative side, on exhibition side. Like you pulled us from all directions because everybody's opinion matters, everybody's input matters. And I think all institutions should do that. They shouldn't just look at their exhibition team and be like, okay, we can't start because of that, or we can't start because we don't have a planning team, like no, pull everybody from all departments because they all, all their opinions do matter, all their input matters, and they may have a really good idea that you're passing up on because you're waiting for the right person with the right title to come in and make a decision or to say, hey, we should do this.
Exactly. Like exhibits are better, programs are better, your institution is better when everyone's voices are heard. Like, Rita was doing spreadsheets, she's working with the money. Nobody was expecting her to come and like do all this incredible programming. And like Rita was like, no, I'm here, I have the skills. There's so many people who other folks might be overlooking because, they're not in specific roles for whatever reason. And like when everybody's voices, when everybody, maybe steps out of their designated lane that their institution has designated for them, like look at what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you saw a photo a minute ago of our committee from last year, and to what everything Latoya and Tori are saying, it's not just Black people that need to do this. It needs to be all of us. Everybody is involved. And like I said, I went to the top. I talked to the management. I got their buy-in. And then after that, I went to the staff. I started from the other way, from the ground roots, the grassroots or whatever we're calling it, and get the members of the staff to say, this is what we want. This is what we feel like, we need. And if, I invited them more. Some people participated more than others, but they were all invited and it was inclusive. And once people found out we were doing it, people that we wouldn't even think would have asked to be involved came up. People were stopping me in the hallway. So just, don't think of, let me find out the Black people and let them figure it out. And we have to put them together. Invite everybody because it's a village. All these different departments have to do things. I don't know anything about IT or, a lot of other logistical things and everything that we're doing with the merchandise. And the chef, he wants to make a menu for, Black History Month. So everybody has something to contribute if they know that there's an interest. So just get started and include everybody. And like Tori said, throw everything out there. We didn't know what we were going to do. And another most important point, look at your house. My mother used to say, charity begins at home and spreads abroad. We often, like you said, MJ, want to look at the big, important public people and say, let's celebrate them. But every institution, every company, even if it's the janitor or somebody you don't know about that's done something in that institution that you can celebrate, and make it a celebration, because sometimes people get real cerebral about it. I don't want to say also that we started Black History Month because the institution were doing things, they were calling them cultural heritage programming. And maybe they were doing some things in February, but then, if didn't have a Black History Month celebration kind of a thing to it, it was more education, and you bring in somebody from the outside and they'll do some cultural something, and that's good. I'm not, going to claim that we're the first, but in a long time, there hasn't been anything that, at least in the time that I've been there. And then it's survey people and ask them, because we talk to, like, you've been here 15 years. What do you remember that you did? Did you see any Black History Month? And you'll find people that have been there a long time. They can remember something that might have happened a long time ago, but we need this stuff now. So that's what it came from. Like, okay, that's cultural heritage and all these, nice educational programs are great, but we need some celebration. We need folks to like be happy and have their backs up and wear these little flag pins and feel like, it's about us today. Because we were feeling invisible. You have all this stuff going on. We're there. A lot of us in forward-facing jobs with the public, protective services, you got housekeeping, you got guest relations, you got facilities management. You got all these people. They're at the kind of lower end of the not, bottom, but they're not deciding things at the top and how to include us in the dialogue or in the presentation of all these exhibits and things like that. So I said, we need that for us. And then after it became about us, everybody feeling better. We all leveled up. There are just as many people, the white people at the museum, that are happy for us to have Black History Month than we are. I hear from them first. They're like, we happy you doing this. Thank you for doing this. And they want the pen. They want to wear the stuff. It's like, I'm like, okay, all right then. So, don't make it just about us, Black people. Just make it about everybody. Yeah. And then you'll be able to bring in other cultures, the Latino people, you got, Native Americans or whatever, Asian cultures, whatever cultures are going on in wherever you are, they'll follow you.
We have, thank you, Emily. That's a sweet comment. We also have a beautiful question. Do you think that some of the resistance of leadership to formally celebrate Black History Month is a fear of quote unquote doing it wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like
fear is a factor in all of this. Because that was like Tori. When Tori went to them and said, I want to do this employee group for Black people, it's like, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to help you with that. And it was okay. But it did, you take it the wrong way. And I could say for a fact, they didn't know what I was going to do. And they wanted to tell me about somebody else that didn't have really the qualifications, only because she wasn't Black. Right. And that, so they're just using their experiences and their worldview about how things should be done. And if we don't come in with our cultural perspective, and I'm like, we're not trying to do an exhibit. We just having a Black History Month celebration. Right. It's not going to take 3 years to get this done. We can do this. And you have to have enthusiasm. I think enthusiasm and being positive and grateful, because people, they'll get in your face and try to stop you. And you're like determined. Don't mirror their behavior. Just say, okay, they're just, and keep going. Don't stop.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest important parts of having diversity and inclusion, a part of your staff or whatever it is that you do, is so that things are accurate, so that it gets done properly. With that being said, now that you all do celebrate Black History Month, what are some things and some changes that have been made within the museum?
Let's see. I'm gonna let y'all tell that story while I think about it.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Well, I mean, really though, it's more people there. If people we are more. Personally, I say it was a lot of people I didn't know. We've been there 5 years. I have met some people. I was like, you've been here 25 years? Black people, other people who not Black people that help us. And they all got skills, girl. They have skills. You can say, let's do it like this. People that are very quiet and very laid back, know what they can do once you get their creative juices flowing. So I think, and people will call me. I got somebody that sent me an email yesterday or Friday, like, what'd you do? Why don't you think about doing this? That's not coming from us. And I'm like, that is a dope idea. We're going to do that next year. Don't tell nobody, so we're going to surprise them. So you don't know. I think people feel free to come and say whatever they want to say. It's not I haven't had any negative. Have you guys had anybody come back and say anything negative to you about anything we're doing? Nobody has. I mean, last year we were unknown. I was unknown and I was pushing this. And like they said, I'm not creative for their purposes. I'm supposed to just count the beans and do my job and sit upstairs. And I was like, all up in people's face. Like, I think we want to do this. And once you get people relaxed enough and get over their fear and open up, and they might, we might have to explain things a few times and get, 7 meetings, but we get it done. And they see the value, because if you really want to do diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, it has to be active. We can sit and talk about it all day. But when you do something tangible that people can see and feel, that's the whole point of the museum, to give people that kind of experience where they feel good when they leave, or they learn something they didn't know when they came. And like I said, it doesn't have to be big, famous, spectacular people, but it's just people that are doing things every day. Mr. Cotton did his thing for 25 years. We walk past this stuff every day. Nobody knew anything about this. Not that they didn't know, but they didn't know how to present it in a way like Tori did.
Let's talk about that, because Tori mentioned Carl Cotton earlier today, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching right now has never even heard the name Carl Cotton. I just recently discovered who this man is, along with his work, and I was completely blown away. Tori, would you like to dive into that and tell everyone who Carl Cotton is?
Always, every day. I'm Carl Cotton's biggest fan. I will talk about him all day. So, I mean, what Reda did was she started looking through our history first, and she found these archival photos, some of which you'll see here. One was in a coffee table book for our 125th anniversary. And we both looked at that photo and was like, this is a Black man. He's a taxidermist in the 1940s. Carl Cotton started at the Field Museum in, I believe, 1947, and he worked at the Field Museum until 1971. Almost 25 years. And he was a taxidermist, a preparator. He worked in various departments across the Field Museum. Much of his work is still on display today. And he was a master at his craft. He learned from some of the taxidermy greats. Kind of the golden age of taxidermy was ending around the time that he started the museum, and he got to learn from the tail end of some of those greats. He had this passion for taxidermy. He was self-taught. He grew up here in Chicago, taught himself taxidermy, just truly pursued his passion, wanted training, and just sent a letter to the museum asking, can I have a job? Can I learn from these greats? And eventually was hired part-time and then was promoted almost immediately to a full-time employee. And so, yeah, we wanted to celebrate all his work. There's an incredible diorama downstairs, one of the last huge, big dioramas the Field Museum produced. And he did not only the taxidermy for all the birds, but he replicated plants, lily pads, flowers, backgrounds, landscapes, things like that. He was really kind of a person who could do it all. Right now, that would be kind of several people's jobs at the Field Museum. But he was really, really a master artist.
Why didn't anyone know about him? Because I'm blown away.
So MJ, I don't think that they didn't know about him.
Okay.
But it didn't register to them as much as it did to us. How phenomenal that was that
right.
it was there. Because the beautiful thing of it, once Tori decided, like I said, they gave us this coffee table book because it's the 125th year of the museum in 2018. And then, like I said, let's look within. What do we have here? There's some history up in this museum somewhere. We can find it. Okay. So once we did that, and Tori said, okay, I think it should be an exhibit. And she started asking questions, and people started sending letters to find out if these people were related to him, if they could find his family. And then she started talking to somebody else, and they got all kind of beautiful photos and all of the physical things that he had worked on. They were all it was almost like spiritually, Mr. Cotton was saying, okay, I'm gonna keep this here for you, because somewhere down the line, somebody gonna come and figure this thing out, And it wasn't like once you looked into it, it was all there, and people were like, yeah, I know, I was always wondering about that, because whatever they were doing, when they were archivists, or they were doing photos, they were doing taxidermy, they were keeping up with the stuff. It was all there for us to just bring it together. And Tori knew how to bring it together with the help of being, part of the exposition team. Everybody just like put it together, and it would have been still laying in a room somewhere, or in a drawer, or in an archive file, just separated and siloed, and nobody would have known how to bring it together. So bringing it together is the eye that we bring, because we felt it significantly, like, oh, this is our brother. He was here representing in 1947. He was determined, just like we are, because he sent his letter and he said, I want a job, and they said no. But he didn't stop. He came back a few years later and said, I still want a job. What y'all gonna do? And he got in there, he showed up and showed out. He was like a master. So it wasn't like he was, unqualified, and he was trying to get in to fit in. He came in, and he was a boss.
Yeah. Go ahead, Latoya.
No, I was just gonna throw in, I think the most thing I found so memorable working on this process with you guys was when his family came to the museum to see his work for the first time. And that photo that you guys put up is actually of his grandson looking at some of his work. Yeah, that photo right there. So I took that photo, and you kind of get emotional. Where's my tissue? Because you kind of get emotional thinking about how his family is in Indiana, I believe, and they hadn't been to the museum, hadn't not seen his work. And to hear their expressions, to hear them say, oh, wow, look at this. And they all got their camera phones out taking photographs of everything. And then in the end, they all are recanting stories about him, about how, he was doing this when he was a kid. And, everyone was afraid to have their animals around him because he might do something to them, like hearing stories like that. And at this point, I'm a fly on the wall. I'm just there taking photographs, and I'm like, wow, like that's why stories like this is so important. That's why it's important for our stories to not be hidden and our contributions to be told, especially in a science museum. Like kids can now walk up and down the hall and see like, oh, now I know who that is. Now I know whose work, who did that. And that person looks like me, and for me as a museum professional, now I know who did this kind of work. I walk past these cases like every day for 2 years and had no clue who that person was. And it's refreshing, and it's a very beautiful thing to now see that he is represented. He's getting the representation that he deserves after all these years.
I can only imagine the magnitude of emotions and gratitude at that his family felt walking through there. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall too, Latoya, and be able to just feel that. That is, I mean, when we briefly spoke, just prepping for the show, I felt that. I got a little emotional because there are so many hidden figures in different areas, different roles, different, not just with museums, but different departments, different lines of businesses, industries. Are there any other hidden figures you'd say that you all have discovered, or other people that were working that look like you that you had no idea about leading up to this?
Can I just say one more thing about the hidden figure thing, and then Rita can jump in about this, but I'll just say that kind of going back to the no one knew him thing, it wasn't that no one knew him. Like, people had seen his name, people had seen his photos, but when the family came, it was like this overwhelming, like this man was important to these people. Like, this is their family, this is their person. And all of a sudden the museum had said, oh yes, this man is important. Like, it's not that he wasn't, known or whatever. It was finally that the museum had said, this is a person who is important. This was just a person who, had worked in the museum. It's just like people right now. There's so many talented people making exhibits now, people you would never know, people who are behind the scenes, whose faces you never see, Black folks in the museum whose faces you may never see on websites. And it's not that they're not extremely important. It's like, this is the time where we're saying the museum is recognizing, like, look at these folks and look at their contributions. They're just as important as everyone else. And I think that's the hidden figure part in there. And yeah, let Rita talk about the other folks.
Again, look within, look where you are. There's no way a 128-year-old institution cannot have somebody doing something in there. So, like I said, I looked at all these things and I came up throwing all this stuff against the wall. It was so much. We couldn't do it all. They manage it. Just do this much because we got to see how you're going to do. Okay, no problem. We had enough. We had plenty last year. Well, one of the things we found in looking, we have an Africa exhibit. And it's been there about almost 30 years. And again, this family, once they found out you're doing stuff, so we have a woman, she's been over probably 30, almost 40 something years. Her name is Pam Gable. She's just a chilled, relaxed kind of, woman. Can be your grandmother. She came, she said, I got this VHS from when we worked on the Africa exhibit. So she gave it to me, and I got our digital media team to put it on something that we could watch, because I'm like, we got a VCR, because I don't have no VCR. So we figured out how to look at it, and it just opened up this behind the scenes world of what went on to create the Africa exhibit. And we saw these Black people, or, as I started sharing it, again, I'm saying, these are a lot of Black people that was working in the museum from the late 1980s to early 1990s, where they weren't here now. You don't see them. We are kind of like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people in exhibitions. And there are, we don't want to say there are not Black people working in, various departments, but for 1990, you had all these people, and they worked and they created this exhibit, and they talk about the same stuff that we're talking about now, having agency, being involved, telling stories from our perspective, our voices. And they worked with some people that gave them the license to do that. So they took material, and we have so many beautiful objects. Oh my God, I just get like, I could stay down in collections all the time to see all the beautiful things that we keep in our safekeepings. And I'm not mad about them having it, because somebody needs to keep these things in safekeeping under the right conditions. But we need to take them out of the collection and show them off. So they were able to help put objects in context. I know many people may have been like myself. You go to the museum and you just see cases of stuff. It's beautiful things, but it's just objects. There's no context. There's no story. We don't know, why is this, what would they do with that? Or, all this beautiful beading, how did they get that done? Or these cowrie shells, or these, carvings, and if that's a mask, it looks really heavy. I don't know if I can hold that up on my shoulders. And this drum is so big. So you don't know what these things are for all the time, but you just know that they are beautiful. So they were able to put together an exhibit in a groundbreaking kind of way, which put things in context. So Tori started reaching out as we were trying to network, because DuSable Museum is also in Chicago. And she met one of the men who happened to be one of those developers or who worked on this Africa exhibit. Then we started finding photos in the archives, and I started asking questions. Then we found out that one of the women, her name is Dr. Deborah Matt. She's over at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Then we started finding out that all these, so they have stories and very, prominent careers now. So we're like, okay, we couldn't do that last year because we had so much stuff going on and we were unknown, but timing is everything. So that's what I'm saying. Don't get dejected because people say no, because I was really adamant. I thought we should have, did this last year, but this year is perfect. We have to be basically making all of our programming online this year because of COVID. So we have this beautiful vintage documentary about the behind the scenes creation of this Africa exhibit 30 years ago. And we've been able to identify 4 individuals of color, Black people. One of them is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia right now, and we're trying to deal with the technical side and making sure he can participate so that on February 19th, we're going to bring them together as a panel and let them tell their story in their own words. But the documentary is available from today, February 1st through the 28th. You have to register to see everything because, it's got to be managed a certain kind of way. So register if you want to see the documentary, and then tune in on the 19th of February to listen to their stories as they tell you about what it was like in 1990 when they were in our shoes, trying to get representation, trying to tell our stories, trying to get agency. And it's a wonderful experience. It has a lot of the elements of a Carl Cotton family reunion because some of these people, they haven't seen each other in a while. So we're going to get them together and let them love each other up. And then that energy is contagious when you do something like that and we brought, Mr. Cotton's family. There's some people, I think Mark always said in his 30-something years, that's like one of the top things he's ever done in his job. So you don't know who you'll touch when you do things like this.
I'm just like taking.
I know, right? I'm having a ball now. I don't know what happened before.
I'm taking it all in because this is just so new to me, and it's remarkable that it was just chain reaction after reaction after reaction. It makes me wonder too, just because I'm talking to you all, right? We talk about the Field Museum, but I'm wondering what else there is to discover everywhere else at other museums,
exactly.
And just if there's a way to get connected with people who are wanting to do the same thing. And I just have so many questions and so many, Have you all reached out to other museums?
This initiative this year is going to take us that way. Having met someone like Dr. Mack and Benny Welch and Calvin Gray, and even Mustafiki Mwalasali, they got scope and reach. They've been doing their thing 30 years, and so I'm sitting at their feet now, saying, how do we tell your story and make it available to other BIPOC and other museums so that they'll know that these are careers. What we're doing for 2 and 3 and 5 years respectively, or 3, 4, and 5 years respectively, they've been able to parlay their experiences into, quite substantial careers. And it's Tori and Latoya said, if people don't even know you can get a job in a museum, where are you on the spectrum? So when we get them together, and as we do this kind of outreach with you, and then we're grateful for this opportunity. And as I listen to Dr. Mack, and she says, use this listserv and talk to these people and send this, invite here. We want to get 1,000 people to come on and listen to this webinar that we're going to do with them and see this documentary. And then all the people that are listening to you now asking questions like Patrick, and start thinking, about your situation, where you are. So we hope that this, and that's, I say, the beauty of it. Last year, I probably would have said, let's do this documentary in our theater. There would have been a limited number of people that could have seen it, because you would have to be there physically. Now, how you take lemons and turn them into lemonade. We got digital. We're going to put this thing online. We're going to do this globally as far as we can. It will be recorded for replay. It will be there for people to see, just as your program is there for people to see beyond what we're doing right now for 2 hours. So there, who can see it and how far it can go. We don't, it's unlimited.
Yeah, we have to go beyond our walls at the institution. We have to really branch out. And that's why I love the fact that we're doing virtual programming this year compared to last year. Because, we're at a much wider reach. We now know you guys, so having something like that is really an advantage for us working at the museum, because now we're able to help inspire other institutions to do the same, to look into their archives and see what Black people have made huge contributions and how to highlight those stories so that they don't continue to stay hidden.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to, thank you, Meredith. Thanks, Meredith. I wanted to go back to that question about how the museum has changed since we've started this. And this kind of is circling this, but what I have noticed both in myself and in the institution is like a slow erosion of boundaries. I think that is what holds institutions back, is we're stuck in these lanes. We don't, we're not reaching across to other departments, to other museums, to our neighbors, to other communities as much as we should be. And I think starting Black History Month, both Latoya and I are involved in the renovation of our Native North American Hall. There's all these different community projects that have started around the museum. And it just makes you feel like, oh, why couldn't I go call this person? Or why shouldn't I go talk to this other person? And we can get this started. And once we get this started, it's easier to do it the next time and the next time and the next time. And so I'm starting to feel like there's, a broader institutional shift where the boundaries between these very strict, this is my lane, or this is how we've always done this thing. I think they're slowly starting to erode a little bit in a good way.
Yeah, and we're widening our network too. We're meeting other people from other communities and making genuine friendships and relationships. I feel like that's so important. That will help us to be able to continue doing the work we're doing, is when we actually know people. And I mean, really know people, know them more than your first name. I can come to you and ask for help. I can come and ask for advice or for resources. If we don't step out and get to know people, then we're limited, we're
And then we could be a beacon for the museum to understand how to do outreach in our communities to people of color. They don't know. They don't know about this, and they don't know about our radio stations as much as we do, and our publications as much as we do. Where they should put, even something like last year, I asked for flyers, to put up our programming in a physical 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I made a statement in a meeting, and I was like, well, our people are not going to be looking for a flagpole on Columbus Drive, which is where the money is maybe spent to do the advertising. But if I put a flyer up on the bulletin board at the church or at the library or, the YMCA or something, then somebody might see that more so than, maybe where you're spending your marketing money. Spend it in a way that will catch the eye of the average person, as opposed to, it's just doing things differently. Try different things. It's not that anything is wrong, but you just got to see something new. Try something new. Do something different. And that way you engage the community. And like in this thing that we're doing right now, that's going to be, people you can't go anywhere. You're stuck at home, but, not stuck, but you can use your phone or your iPad, your laptop or your desktop and get this kind of engagement of behind the scenes activities of a museum and learning about people who did a craft like taxidermy. There's not that many people doing taxidermy that are Black. So you don't know who you will inspire. And then those kids and their parents become members of the museum, and that brings color and diversity and engagement that tells us as a museum what kind of programming that we should do that will attract more.
Let me ask you something, Rita. For someone who is watching this and does become inspired, not expired, Lord, hopefully don't be inspired, inspired. Let's say a child's watching this. Let's say they're not even watching it live. They just happen to come across this because everybody has access to everything on the internet now. They become inspired. What is it that their parent or guardian or mentor can do to help them get on track to get into this industry?
Okay, I'll start off, but I'm gonna volley this to my other sisters. Okay, so what we're doing, we have a great learning centers. We have a couple of them. Keller Action Science Center, and there are programs that the museum has that works with public school systems that brings what we call like urban science to the community, because you don't have to really be, in the Amazon to study science. You can do it in the park or in your backyard or different things like that. So we have a lot of programming that's geared toward children and students and families. When you're working with teachers who are working with our BIPOC youth, they're, creative in how they bring science to kids, and they listen to the kids and get feedback and understand how to engage them more. And then in our programming, like this year's program is all about this whole thing that we're talking about, how to showcase the path from the teachers. Yolanda Wilhite is one of our committee members. She works in the Keller Action Center. They are out there in the community doing things. And so she's organized teachers from, elementary school, middle school, high school, to talk about how they get their kids and students interested and curious. They're that way anyway, but there are programs like the Earth Force or the Mighty Acorns and just different things that you can get into. And I'm sure there are other institutions that have things like that as well. And then we're bringing in grad students who will give you an example to see. These are people who went to college to do something scientific or artistic or creative. And these are some of the maybe challenges that they're having or triumphs and accomplishments and how they're learning to use their education to create new careers. And then we'll go into more experienced and established scientists who can show you and tell you the history and the trajectory of their careers. They've been there for a while. So as I said earlier, we have books on our website. Everybody has access to the internet. If you learn about something new, go online and start looking it up and start finding out more about it and get involved with some kind of program through your community that will support further education and learning about it.
So my advice is for like students that are a bit older, like maybe coming out of college. For me, like I mentor a lot of our interns on our media team, and a lot of them don't have, like they want to get museum experience, but they're like either a freshman, a sophomore, or junior in college and still trying to figure out what they want to do, still trying to hone their skills. And for me, my encouragement to them is internships, is apprenticeships, some way of getting your foot in the door to get a good behind the scenes feel of what we do, our process, the kind of work we create, how long it takes to make it, everyone that's involved, like really getting a good sense of everything that we do. And one of my goals since being at the Film Museum is to hire more Black people in media, whether you're a motion designer or you want to be a producer or an editor or a filmmaker. I always make that a priority that we're getting some of these applicants on the desk and that they're being considered and that they're brought in to be interviewed and hired. Our representation matters. I'm not the only media producer at the Film Museum. There is another, and both of us, our priority is that we're seen, we're making ourselves seen, and we're putting ourselves out there so that others can know that, hey, you can have a career in the museum as well. It's not just an all white staff. That's something I experienced in college, is being the only Black filmmaker in my class, and thinking that, well, I mean, it was true in college that, hey, this is an all white male dominant industry. That was really hard going through that from undergrad, even up to graduate school. Luckily in graduate school, there were other Black filmmakers in my class, but definitely in undergrad, I was the only Black female. So definitely when it was time for me to make that transition into the museum industry, I didn't want to continue to show that. I wanted to be able to show other people coming in that, hey, we're occupying these spaces too. And yes, we are looking at hiring other Black creatives, like we're not being selective. We're opening our doors to everyone. If you have the talent and the skill, that yes, you should be definitely considered for a position.
Yeah, and I want to echo everything both Latoya and Reda said, plugging the great programs our Learning Center, our Action Center are doing for youth. And wherever you are, I know probably folks are watching from other places other than Chicago, but get involved in your local institutions, see what cool opportunities there are, get involved. I would say this is a lesson I took from Carl Cotton, but if you or your kid has an interest, even if it's slugs or octopus or, I'm really into rocks or, don't let anyone discourage you from really, really learning what you want to learn, to be passionate about what you want to be, even if, folks tell you, oh, what are you going to use that for? Or why, try to keep pursuing what you really care about. And like Latoya said, for older people trying to get into the museum field, the best way to get a museum job in some ways is to work in a museum, to do internships, to get experience. And this is me saying this to the museum field, is we have to do better at making that barrier to entry, better for everyone to get involved. This shouldn't be a field where you work for free, where you volunteer your time for years and years and years before you get a job. That's how you create an uninclusive environment. Museums need to pay interns. They need to create programs to have all kinds of folks from different walks of life come and work in museums. This is the only way to get young folks aware of the museum field, to get people in the door, pay them, mentor them, create supportive environments for different kinds of folks, not the same students you're getting every single time. And so that's something we have to work on at the Field Museum, and that I think all museums need to work on.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I get that we definitely need to be paid. I'm definitely down for that. But I'm not going to discount volunteering. Okay? Don't discount it. I mean, that's not you don't want to stay a volunteer unpaid for, indefinitely. But bring your kids to the museum. Just bring them to a aquarium, a zoo, park districts, something. Bring them inside. That's our whole thing. We have like 7 free days in February. I think we have free days every Monday and Thursday from late January to mid March, but 7 of them in February, every Monday and Thursday except for President's Day. So everybody doesn't have any money. Bring your kids. There are things at the library. I think they have a program at the library where you can go and get passes to come in. If you happen to have limited income, there are programs that the state does that you can get a pass or a discount, but you have to come inside. And that's our whole thing. We're trying to be this lighthouse. Come to the museum and see us, because once you come in there, as Tori said, whatever your passion, whatever your interest is, it's a stimulating, it's a tactile experience. Some of it is touch, but we're not going to probably be touching a lot of stuff right now because of COVID. But you can see it up close as opposed to read it in a book or watch it on a screen at television or your computer and walk around among. When you're in some great big space like Stanley Field Hall and you see this, giant skeleton of a dinosaur, it puts it in perspective. Or you see that all the taxidermist dioramas that they put up, you kind of feel like I'm there in that space where those animals' habitats are. And that's something that we don't get. It's not all about going to, nothing wrong with going to, the movies and things like that. But we don't get a chance to, like my personal experience that I had a chance to be in Africa for 14 years and be out in the wild and see animals. But most of us are not going to have that. So this is a place where you can actually have those kind of experiences. So come, bring your kids, volunteer. You don't have to volunteer forever. And, get your foot in the door and get behind the scenes a little bit. We have members nights, usually in the spring, where we open up things. And I'm sure other institutions do that too. So you can get to talk to some scientists. We have Meet a Scientist programming. It's all free. It's online. Just go to the page and listen to people talk about their careers. They'll tell you, just like you're asking us what we do. They're paleontologists and anthropologists and various scientists. We're happy to share their stories and their passion for what they do. And then you're like, okay, I might like to do that too. So you can get stimulated to go and get more information.
It's definitely also an opportunity just to see if you even enjoy it. Because you might have an interest in something and you get there and it's a different story. So I think that's That's remarkable. I think that's amazing. I want to get in there. Correct. Speaking of which, I want to talk a little bit about these pins y'all have on. Where can we get those?
Well, I think you have a link. You have a link to our store. We have to give a shout out to our museum store. We bought some pins last year because everything we do with an exhibit, we usually kind of like mark it, if you will, as a opening, and we have a pin for it. Then it's usually an exhibit, you know, if we're opening something about dinosaurs or history or science or whatever. So we asked for a pin. So that became a thing last year. People was like, okay, well, where's the t-shirt? And where's the hat? And where's this? So this year we were able to get some merchandise, and all those things are online. We have our beautiful mug if you want to drink your coffee.
I'm gonna get me a mug. I love mugs.
We got face masks and tote bags, and they're all of everything is not just this Pan-African flag theme, but we have other things. I found they had some really cool socks with quotes by Dr. Martin Luther King on them. Like I said, they've got the children's books, and they've got books like one of my mentors is 102 years old, Mr. Timio Black. They got his books in there, so you can read about Chicago history from his perspective. And so, yeah, we're going to get your book in there, too.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, I got
to work on that.
I'm also going to open up the floor, the comments, y'all, everyone who is live watching and tuning in, to answer some questions. You all asked us some questions. Oh, we have one from Patrick Clean. What are some ways those outside of the BIPOC community can do to help bring in more representation for marginalized communities to the table? Wow.
Invite them. Just invite them. They'll come. Like I said, we have free days. We have the membership nights. If you don't have those kind of things in your organization, think about it. Sometimes that word of mouth advertising is the best thing. So you don't get a ticketed, payment that particular day, but the goodwill you create and the exposure that you bring to people, and then they start talking about it, and somebody else want to come, and before you know it, you brought in more interest than you could have paid for. So just invite them. Take some kids. There was one year, and these are my personal experiences, how I do. You can do however you want to do. I went to some kind of event. I thought it might have been my second year there. And I can't remember exactly what the organization, but they were like a service organization that helped and gave. And the woman I was talking to that night, she worked with homeless people. But she didn't say it. She said it so eloquently. She said, these are people in transition. Okay. And I'm like, cool, I got you. And that particular year, because I think the first year I invited all my friends and family to the Field Museum's members night because they're free and they're behind the scenes and they're open. But that particular year, I gave her all of my tickets. I think we get like 10 guests or something like that. And I said, you identify 10 people that you work with that want to come to the museum. And she brought them. And they had the best time. And they sent me the most beautiful card. So just invite people. Tell them that these, notice when something is going on. If people don't have a lot of income, just notice that, look for the free days and look for the discounts and spend your money. You buy them a ticket and bring somebody's children, or give that mother a day off when she could. I think one of it had been a long, long time ago when I had brought some kids to the museum one year. All of the kids' moms were only children. And I was like Auntie Rita. And I think I brought about 5 kids. I don't know what I was doing that day. And I brought them to the museum. So get somebody's kids and bring them, because that's your excuse to go, because you really want to go yourself, but you don't think you should be able to come and just bring somebody's kids with you and just enjoy it.
I think for me, one thing I enjoy is giving like college students tours, like behind the scenes tours, where they are able to ask me about my job. I'm able to show them the work I do around the museum. It's more like an intimate thing. Like I'm able to answer all their questions and tell them all of the challenges, the ups and downs of our wonderful careers, but keep it real with them, and be able to give them a lot of insight on how to get into this industry and how to be successful in this industry. So that's one thing that I think other communities should do is bring in school groups, or they don't have to be just young kids. They can be college students as well. I volunteer myself that if anyone contacts me and wants a behind the scenes tour and wants advice or wants a Zoom meeting to ask about how to be a media producer at a museum, I volunteer. I would love to do that. I love doing that. I love giving people advice and encouragement.
I like that. I like that a lot, especially in regards to what we were talking about with how we invite people into our space. Monet has a beautiful question as well. As a woman of color, many of my peers don't want to be tokens, but representation is needed. What would you say to ensure proper representation versus tokenism?
I think hiring people in leadership positions and more than one person. I had not an argument, but I did confront a motion design company a few months ago during all of the rioting when everyone was like putting out I'm in solidarity with Black people statements. And so this company put out one of those statements and I was like, well, one way you can show your solidarity is hiring more Black people. Your staff is completely white. And then someone in the comments responded, well, it should be more about their experience, not about the color of their skin. And then I corrected them and I said, I'm not talking about tokenism. I'm talking about pure, actual representation, genuine representation. When you hiring more Black people onto your staff, that is showing that your solidarity. You don't even have to say it. You're automatically showing that you care about Black people. You care about our voice. You care about our opinion, our perspective, our skill set, and you're bringing that into your company. If you don't do that and you only hire one Black person, like you're checking something off a box, then yes, it is tokenism.
Absolutely. We have another question as well that kind of goes along the lines of that from Emily. Any tips for self-care when you happen to be the only BIPOC person in the room and people only come to you for questions, comments only regarding your identity?
For me, I use like my husband as a soundboard, like to really just get feelings off my chest. Like it can wear on you for a while. Like if you're going through that for so long, and I have went through that for so long. And for me, I had to like sit and just talk to him and just get it all out, because you don't want to come to work angry the next day, angry at your coworkers because of how you feel and how you feel like you are alone and you're by yourself, and it's just isolating. So yeah, I think talking it out and just realizing the situation you're in, and then also talking to higher ups of how we can improve this and how can we make our culture better, and be honest about how you feel. Like, I don't think it's right that I'm the only one, like this isn't cool. Like I do feel like it is tokenism that I'm in this position. And if they aren't willing to do anything about it, then you need to find another place to work that isn't about that kind of culture.
100%. And we're now better than ever to be able to do that. Tori, Did you add anything to that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, this is something I'm still trying to learn, but echoing Latoya, like it's important to have a community, even if it has to be outside of your workplace, people who you feel like you can talk with and really, get those feelings out. I think it's really important. I think honesty with your organization is important too. I think it's okay to say, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for this, or hey, I can't do this right now, or I will do this, but not that, or you need to bring in some more folks to talk about this with, or to get their opinion and bring more people in, because I can't be the only one. I can't represent my identity, my race, my ethnicity. I'm not a representative. I'm one person, and this is my one experience. And I still have to do my job on top of this. And so I think it's important for institutions to hear that.
I agree. Sometimes you can just say no. It doesn't that you don't, say like, nasty or anything like that. But you have to do, you have to take care of yourself. Self-care. Have some things that you do for you inspirationally. Now, like we're looking at Black History Month, we just went through some things like a couple of weeks ago for me, the inauguration, and, there are examples of, women are leaving us like Cicely Tyson and Diane Carroll, and, you go and look at your ancestors and our leaders and read their stories, because sometimes you have to be first. And the Hank Aaron's and all of those different people, you have to build your character, your how you say, your fortitude for yourself to have an internal focus, so that your self-worth is not really dependent on what other people think of you. And as Latoya and Tori said, you got to represent. You be confident in what you do and know, and do your job to the best of your ability. Be respectful and appreciative, but sometimes you can't represent everybody. You don't need to. And then that standing up for yourself, you set that example, and you tell the bosses or managers or whoever wants to put you out there as the example of, see what we're doing, that and that's, as we've been talking, you bring somebody else. You bring somebody else with you, even if you just bring them in there to visit, so that they can see that it's some other people that got skills, and refer folk. And if you feel that confident in what they have to offer, tell them to make sure you apply for this job, or go on the website and see what's going on in HR, and start not inundating, but bring more people to the attention, or as they're saying, that the ladies are saying, go out and volunteer and show yourself as an example of an individual that's in a niche or doing something that maybe they hadn't realized that they could do themselves.
That's beautiful, and that's wonderful advice as well, just as Emily said in our comments. Latoya, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, self-care is speaking up. Like, I have a bad habit of keeping everything bottled in and not speaking up. And I feel like the older I've been getting, the more vocal I have become, the more confident I have become in my perspective and in my past experiences. And I no longer want to stay silent about what we go through as Black people, as Black women in our industries. I no longer want to continue to hide it and sweep it under the rug and pretend like it doesn't exist. If I see something's wrong, something's not right, if I feel like I'm being tokenism in any kind of way, I'm going to speak up about it.
That's amazing. Thank you. Tori, is there anything else you wanted to add additionally?
No, I agree. Latoya's energy is infusing into me. I feel very inspired by that. Yeah, absolutely. Like, advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself, it's not easy. It's especially if you're younger and just, in your career or newer in an institution, it's hard. I mean, all this burden is hard, but speaking up for yourself, saying no when you need to, making sure that you're advocating for yourself when you're calling things out. I mean, it's tough, but it will help you and it will help others in the long run.
Absolutely. We, like I said at the beginning of this, we are Black history. And it takes that. It takes us speaking up to pave the way for someone else. I just want to let the three of you all know how much you three mean to me. I'm not a part of your industry, but we are part of the same family. And being able to sit here and talk to the three of you is not only inspiring, but it's so helpful and so beneficial for myself just to see three queens just doing it. And this is such an amazing opportunity to even talk to you all. And I appreciate you all so much. Let's see, I just want to thank everyone who's tuning in. And I know some of you all have been able to ask some questions. Some of you all are going to be watching this later on. Is there anything else that you three wanted to add before I close this out?
No, thank you for having us on. This was awesome. I'm so happy that Reda and Tori was able to come on here also, because like just hearing all of our experiences are similar but also different at the same time. So it was really important for all three of us to talk about this together, which I think is amazing, is great. Yeah, and I hope that we can continue having these conversations and being transparent about our feelings, about our hopes and our dreams in the future.
Thank you for inviting us. And I hope that, whatever we said will inspire you to, represent yourself. Be authentically Black. But in a way, you know how to do it. Yeah. You know when to put it. You know when to dial it up and then turn it down. But when it's time, don't let anybody else, define your narrative. Who you are. You do this in whatever environment, because quote unquote, we're not the minorities. We might not be in that particular organization in abundance, but don't feel like, you're not, you come from queens and kings and folks that's doing it. And then, like I said, go read a book or get your history book out. See all the folks that were on the opening segment when we started this thing, and I was like, I told you I went and got my tissue because I was like, we can ready to talk about stuff with them. These people, we can, those are the people. Go read Cicely Tyson's book. I'm going to get it as soon as I can put my hands on it, because she did something right, to make it, or whatever your industry is, there's someone. Go find them and write them a letter, send them an email. Just give them some praise and shout out. Be grateful. And then if you get up under them and get up under their wing and help them. And if they see you're eager, you've got great examples of people who are like, you ask for help, nobody knows you need help unless you ask. So, speak up and get it. Get, follow in the footsteps of those who came before, like these museum people who we gonna bring together on the 29th. They cannot get rid of me. I'm gonna be their friend. I'm be asking them for advice every step of the way.
Tori, do you have anything else to add?
No, just thank you so much for inviting us. Thanks, Latoya, for bringing us in. And
thank you, Latoya.
A round of applause for these three.
Thank you all.
Thank you three so much. We will see you all again right here, because we are celebrating Black history all month long. We have other amazing people coming in, and we're celebrating all year. We are Black history. I'm Marissa Jay White-Quarles, otherwise known as MJ, signing off. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Thank you.